Lonesome Lands podcast, Lonesome Report. A lot going on, I guess. What are we
It's the
going to get
Wild
into?
West.
Trump's tweet at the cattle industry, the big announcement from the USDA. Sid Miller is on a campaign to open the southern border.
Hmm.
I guess if you're new here, we talk about issues in agriculture and kind of an emphasis, I guess, on the cattle industry. And there
Definitely.
is more going on this week than there has been in the past 3 months, I think. So, uh, this episode is brought to you by Circle 5 Cow School. Micah Bristow, I think is how you say that, Bristow, a big supporter of us, and he will teach you how to
Bristow.
pregnancy check your own cows at location and most locations AI as well. So he travels around the country and puts on kind of clinics for pregnancy, preg testing and AI, and offering sessions from Colorado to Kentucky and Nebraska to Texas. Check us out on Facebook at Circle, spelled out Circle 5, the number 5, School for Cattlemen, or our website at Circle, CIRCLE 5, the number 5, COWSCHOOL, circle5cowschool.com. And he will teach you how to pregnancy check your cows or to AI. If you're not familiar with the cattle industry, that means artificial insemination.
That's a guy who thinks outside of the box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's also a great. Remember, I didn't put two and two together, but Feeder Flash wasn't on one morning, and he came on and did an impersonation of Corbett Wall.
Yes,
And
that's
then I met
right.
it, like I had talked to him and messaged back and forth, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's that guy." So I was able to put,
Yeah.
yeah, all right.
He
You
seems
know how to,
super nice. He's funny.
yeah. Um, you need to go. You know how to palpate cows.
Well, I have done it before, but I have to be about 9 months pregnant for me to find a calf.
You just look at their bags, huh?
Uh,
But you've tried. You've stuck your arm in there.
oh yeah, I think I can
You can
probably
do it.
yeah, I could. I'd have to have a refresher course, but
Yeah. Have you ever AI?
no, I'm a yearling man. I
I
buy
know.
sale barn calves and upgrade them suckers.
All right. Well, if you want to learn how to, Circle 5 Cow School. All right. I guess we'll start off with
Let's start
Donald
off.
J. Trump. The cattle ranchers, this is his quote. The cattle ranchers who I love don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. It would be nice if they would understand that. But they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. October 22nd, 2025. Oh, I didn't say the date. This is October 27th, 1:21 p.m. because
Yep.
the news moves fast and this episode doesn't always get out the fastest. But so that was a tweet. And there's a lot to get
Yeah.
into around that. And I feel like to go back to kind of how this all came about, I feel like we go back to these meetings that small number of cattle ranchers have had with Secretary Brooke Rollins about the cattle industry.
Hmm.
And to put that, they were putting together kind of a policy that would help the cattle industry. She wanted to come out and help and fix the problems that were there. Um, And so one of those guys that was in on that was Jack Payne. And so they had decided and scheduled to announce this plan, the USDA's plan for the cattle industry on October 23rd in Fallon, Nevada at Jack Payne's sale barn,
Right.
which caused a problem for both you and I because we were both going to go. I'd looked at plane tickets and everything, and it was not going to be cheap. Fallon, Nevada, I don't think has a hotel, or at least not one that he would recommend. Um, but it's like an hour out of Reno, so it wasn't going to be a huge deal. But Shad was going to be in New York City, and I'm in the middle, or was in the middle of harvest. We actually finished last night at, I don't know, got home at like 10 o'clock.
Awesome.
So we're done. That's why I'm here. But
Great. Great.
yeah, so, and that's why I'm not completely studied up on the way I should be. But anyway, so that was kind of in the works and in the plans. And at first it was kind of going to be an open deal. They weren't sure, and then it was going to be a closed deal. But the plan all along was going to be Secretary Rollins was going to be there and possibly other cabinet members, like maybe Secretary of Interior or I don't know who else. But and they were going to have like roundtables with cattlemen, and they were going to answer questions and kind of roll out this plan for the cattle industry. And then the government shutdown happened,
Right.
which at the time I was like, oh, good, I might be able to go because at first they were like, well, if it keeps going, this government shutdown keeps going, we'll just have to push the event back in the sale barn.
Correct.
And so, and then Shad would be able to go too. Would have been a big humdinger.
It would have been
Um,
fun.
yeah. And then, but as the government shutdown continued, they just canceled. They can't just be like, I mean, it got to where they were a week or two out, and they said, well, we got to
Yeah.
have way more notice than that to make it, to actually make an event. So they said, we're going to postpone it, and we don't know about the announcement or the rollout or anything. And then as we got closer to last week, there was kind of rumblings that they would announce it. They would continue kind of with that same date, and there would be an announcement from Washington, D.C.
Right.
And so certain people got involved or invited, I guess. I don't know who all got invited. And I don't think anybody does except for maybe the people who sent out the invitations because I've been asking around. But anyway, on October 22nd, it was scheduled to make this announcement with the about the beef industry. It was going to be a great day, right, for the
Yeah.
cattle industry.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
if you go back to last, I think Thursday night is when Trump made his comments. Is that right? Yeah, yeah,
No.
last Thursday night, and then we recorded on Monday. So we talked all about how he said he was going to import Argentinian beef and that cattle or beef prices were too high, to which the cattle industry has pushed back hard against, saying that beef prices are not too high. Everything is also, compared to anything else, it's not too high.
Correct.
It's strong. The beef prices are strong. That's what a
We're
auctioneer called and
strong.
told
Yeah.
me this week. Um, and so you go from that and then into this week, and they were going to roll out this announcement on Wednesday. Um, Jack Payne, who friend of the program, we know him, and some other people had flown to DC to be part of this announcement. Apparently, there was a number of other cattlemen who were invited to be part of the announcement, or what they were calling industry leaders to be part of the
Hmm.
announcement. And the only people that showed up was Jack Payne and Hayden Ballard, which was odd, I guess, for everyone involved. And it raised a lot of questions. But around the same time that this whole announcement was happening, Donald Trump sent out that tweet that I just read that cattle people should all just appreciate, and it was almost kind of like I think for the majority of the industry, it was understandable, or a majority of ranchers and farmers that raise cattle, it was understandable that they took that pretty personally, right? Because it was almost meant to be personal, right?
Yes, he got his feelings hurt, and he does what he always does. He had a Jim Mundorf quote unquote knee jerk reaction.
He's the king
Um,
of knee jerk
yeah,
reaction.
sure.
What did you think? And so if you go back and think about like me and Shad are sitting around waiting for this thing, like
Sure.
it wasn't sure that it was going to be live streamed, but we were told it was going to be live streamed on the
Right.
White House website.
Right.
So
And
I'm
it
hauling
was up
grain.
until like 15 minutes before.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
hauling grain and I'm just hitting refresh on whitehouse.gov. Like, is this
Me
thing happening?
too.
What's going on? And then, time just goes by and nothing comes out. And then Shad sends me a screenshot of this tweet. And my first response was, that can't be real. Right? Yeah, you probably don't remember, but yeah, that's
I
when I first
don't.
saw it. I was like,
Which
because
which
people do that now, right? They'll put some, and then they'll impersonate Trump, how he would talk or what he would say, and they'll
yeah,
make it funny.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's not funny, but to me, it was just like, oh, somebody's just playing off of his comments before. What did you think when you first saw it?
First saw what?
The
The
tweet, the
president's
Truth
tweet?
Social Media, I guess, or social.
Well, okay, let's go back to last Thursday when he made, and we've had an episode since then, but he made the comment, and me and you, I was like, okay, let's just lay low and see what happens. We knew the comment was not going to set well with producers across the nation. We're going to import, or we might import beef. His actual words were, we could import beef from Argentina. But nobody had made an official announcement yet at all. So we laid low for a day and a half or 2 days. Then I did a video and I'm like, okay, we don't know yet what's going on. And then we had this episode. And then all of this crazy DC stuff happens. And he comes out with the tweet that I wish the ranchers would love me more, basically. And I'm like, oh no. So I just thought, maybe it will blow over. And I made the comment, let's forget the tweet and focus on our business, right? Because this plan had come out the same day. This plan from Secretary Rollins, Secretary Burgum, and President Trump. And it's a good plan, right? I'm going through it as fast as I can. And I'm like, okay, this is good enough to bypass the tweet and get
Did
people
the
back on the land, right?
did the plan come out before the tweet, or did the tweet? I saw the
I
tweet before I saw the plan.
Right, me too, but I don't, but it was all interwoven there in timing, right? And probably the plan had to be fast tracked to try to bypass this stinking tweet President from President Trump. So my initial reaction was like, I love this president. I don't want to go back to socialism, and I want him to just be quiet, because I still abide by the tone today that that is not Trump's position to intermingle himself into the market. That's not his job. That's the consumer's job to choose what they're going to buy and what they're not going to buy at what price. They're the market makers. And so I was very upset with him for that, Jim, but I was willing to bypass that and say, okay, let's focus on the plan. But then you read further down in the tweet, and he says, well, the tariffs have been because of, the high prices are because of the tariffs, and that's because of me. Well, that's not because of President Trump or the tariffs, right? That's just not the case. And so that lends me to the effect of, well, he needs more grassroots agriculture, beef oriented advisors, because that's just not the case. So
No,
the
just one second. I
okay.
One thought that popped into my mind. So to give
Mhm.
everybody perspective, I have been in a tractor or a truck for
2 weeks.
and all day long. Like I just don't I get home, I go to bed, and then I
Right.
get up and I go back. And so I really haven't had time to do a ton of research, but if you stay tuned to lonesomelands.com, I'm going to try to put this up. But one thought that popped into my head is um we've seen record prices for like 2 years, right? I mean, I can remember 2 years ago we sold our calves, and I'm pretty sure we were like, we've never got that before. And it was like, you know, I mean, I don't remember weights or prices exactly, but I remember it was high. And then last year sold them again, way higher. This year they're through the roof, right? So they're
Well,
even higher than they
they're
were
through
last year.
they're through the roof over the last month,
Yeah, and in
right?
the last month, every sale barn you hear about is setting new sale barn
Records.
records.
Right.
So what I want to do eventually is look at Brazilian tariffs and imports and what has happened to those over the months. Have you looked at that at all?
No, but and
Over the
that
months
could
of this year.
no, that could be a reflection of those tariffs in the short term. But over this long term buildup to where we're at, that is not the
Right.
case.
Yeah, I'm
And if you look
100%.
at, we're talking about being off 30 to $100, 100 today. And still we're in high price territory, right? We're still, 6, 8 months ago, this was still a great 5 months ago, it's still a great price, right? That's how much the short term. So maybe the tariffs had an effect on it in the very short term, but over leading up to that, no, sir, it
Right.
wasn't the
Yeah.
tariffs and it wasn't Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. I just
Yeah.
wondered if the tariffs had any impact. And for people, one thing I have been able to look at is like I'll get a break here and there and watching grain unload, and then I'll be able to check some things. And like National Beef Wire had a great social media post where they talked about this year imports are up 30%. And this goes into the cattle industry all freaking out about Argentina, which
Yeah.
Argentina does not have enough cattle, or they don't have enough they have a lot of cattle, but they use a lot of it themselves, which is what kind of countries should do, I feel like. Anyway, um, if we imported every pound of beef that Argentina exports, it would supply our market 35% of our market for 1 week is how National Beef Wire put it.
Okay.
Brazilian imports are up 91.46% on the
Unbelievable.
year. No one, and that's up to now. So John Trump talks about Argentina and the whole world freaks out.
Right.
No one has freaked out about Brazilian. I mean, we
No.
have. We've talked about it. RCAP talks about it. But as far as like these industry leaders who are all flying off the handle, they haven't said a peep about Brazilian imports. They haven't said a peep about overall imports being up 30% on the year. But they've all decided to kind of draw a line in the sand here on this Argentina
So
deal,
let me
which isn't
ask
even
you,
happening,
well,
or
what
at the
is the
time wasn't
art?
even happening.
What is that line? I mean, why is it that everybody, and listen, I go back, I'm like, Trump, that's not your place. It's not your business
And can I
to,
interject there
yeah,
for one
yeah,
second too? So 2 weeks ago, we did a podcast about soybeans because soybean prices are way down, and all these
right,
farmers are, CNN and MSNBC are finding all the farmers that hate Trump, and they're saying
right,
this is Trump's fault. This is
right,
Trump's fault.
right.
So when you look at his, he knows he's getting blamed. If the market's down, which it is right now, he's getting blamed. So,
Yeah,
he probably looks at it as like, he's been hit with this soybean deal for months,
right.
and they're all blaming him for the market, but no, he's probably like, well, nobody's giving me credit for the, you know what I mean? Like you
Yep.
can't say, which I 100% agree with you. It's not Donald Trump did not make record cattle prices, but he's getting blamed for these low prices and all the other commodities also. So that's
Well,
probably somewhat just giving an input into where he's coming from, probably. You know what I mean?
yeah, I do know what you
Markets
mean,
being
but
down, he gets blamed. Markets
sure.
being up, and now everybody's freaking out saying, "Well, you
But
have
that's
nothing to do
what
with
my
it."
question to you is why is it the Argentina issue? Why did that become the line in the sand when we have, you just stated that Brazilian imports are up 90, did you say 91% on
91.46%
on
over
the year?
2024, which I believe 2024 was a record high too from
You know,
Brazil.
where were these complaints in 2015 when we lost this market?
Yeah.
Not not as quickly as we have in the last 4 days, but we lost this market in 15. Where were those guys at? What about in 19 with the Holcomb beef plant fire, August 9th, 2019, where we lost $40 a hundred, which we've lost that today in the last 4 days. We lost it over the weekend. That happened on a Friday, and on come Monday, all hell had broken loose. Where were these people all at? We're a net importer of beef now, and especially of food. So
Well,
where
where were they during
I
COVID?
my question to you is why is Argentina the line in the sand for these
Right.
for the beef and cattle leadership? That's
And
what I
not
need
just
to
with
know.
Trump, but just overall. I mean, the
Yeah,
cattle industry has been kicked in the nuts, every which way over the years. And it's like NCBA always has an excuse or, well, that's just how the market operates. And
and listen,
these are
box
just
beef price.
fundamentals. This is cycles. We've heard all the playbook. And now this week, it's they're going to war. I mean, their
They're
first
going to
tweets or
war.
multiple tweets on Thursday.
Well, you have to realize that the corporate system is very much against Trump. They want to get these cattle into the industry, but we have to remember Trump made the tweet on the premise that he was going to import Argentina beef. You just explained and rolled out how that would affect the markets or how much it was going to be in terms of volume. and box beef prices are up $5 since that tweet came out. So
Yeah,
the
which that if you
price
want
of
to talk
beef has
about,
gone down, box beef has gone up. So here's the timeline of what I've figured out. On October 22nd, he tweeted the tweet, which we have to get to the premise of why that tweet came to be, okay?
and
We
for
haven't
the
done that.
record, we know it's a true social post, but everyone kind of saw it on Twitter,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
it's
So
his
on
deal.
on October 22nd, he tweeted the tweet and decided that we're going to could we could could bring in Argentina beef. On that news, the market went limit down. October 23rd, the very next day, it had a residual, closed $3. These are feeder cattle prices I'm talking about. Closed $3.50 off. It did not seem to affect the cash cattle prices as of that day. October 24th, which was Friday, Sid Miller comes out with his freaking plan and says, we don't need to import inferior Argentina beef, but we need to open the Mexican border to the million head of cattle sitting on the south side. Feeder cattle prices locked down the limit. I texted him a picture of it and he said he texted me back. And then, of course, this morning, on the fear of all the confusion, the Argentine, the Mexican border, all of this confusion has created uncertainty in the markets and locked those futures down the limit. This time 1350 instead of 925. It moved up to 1350. And so all hell is broken loose. And finally, we see a break in the cash cattle prices at La Junta, Colorado this morning, a 572-pound steer, which brought 447 last week, brings 347 today. That's a difference of $572. How would you like to have 1,000 of them? $572 change in 4 days, 5 days. Oklahoma City, everything was down 30 to 50 earlier on. Now it's a little more, it seems like. So a big change. All of that positivity in the cash market that held through those stinking tweets and Miller's interview came to fruition today. So it's
Yeah,
wild.
and
It
there
is the
is
Wild
a
West.
widespread anger, I guess, if you look at.
Widespread anger, and rightly so. But let you know,
I guess to go back into that timeline
yeah,
and to get to where we were kind of going. So you know, the message comes out and we're standing around wondering. And for us, we knew that there was this event happening. Most cattle producers, I'm guessing, probably didn't. So as soon as they see that, knee-jerk reaction is, what the hell is this guy? You know, we got him elected, we voted for the guy, and now he's coming out attacking us, wanting to push our prices down.
yeah,
All of that, you know, we work hard,
yep.
all of that stuff you're seeing on social media, but I didn't have that. You know, to me, it was kind of like I knew there was something going on. And so my question is, what is going on?
What was
And
it?
I
That
couldn't
was
get a hold of anybody because, you know, people that were involved just weren't, you weren't able to get a hold of anybody.
well, the people
Um,
that you knew and were involved, the people that I knew were involved in that meeting. Of course, I had not heard from them for a couple of days, but I knew damn well they are Trump supporters and they weren't going to go in there guns ablazing to Trump. You just
oh,
don't
yeah.
do that, right?
Right.
So I knew there was something else up.
Yeah. And so I guess that day, you know, and as I'm sitting in the truck and like just kind of researching and looking at Twitter and stuff and people, you know, eventually people are kind of like, how does this happen, you know? And so someone had blamed National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the NCBA, who is kind of the chief cattle beef industry lobbyist in DC
Hmm.
for pissing off Trump. And you know, someone who was closely tied with NCBA is Jacqueline Wilson. She said, wrong, wrong association, bud.
Right,
And then she said something about you need to look to Montana, to which I responded, Montana Stock Growers, which is kind of still NCBA.
right.
And she responded, a couple of guys from LMA, which is Livestock Marketing Association, which is the Association of Sale Barns for the cattle and, well, I guess just the livestock, I guess. It's a sale barn association. They sell insurance for sale barns also. And she had, yeah, so she had said Montana and life a couple guys from livestock association, and then she said something about they were there with Tim Sheehy, and Tim Sheehy is a senator from Montana.
Hmm.
And so if you look at what he's been up to, he had a meeting on October 21st with the Common Ground Coalition. Um, and then as I started digging, I found this video from I believe an LMA member, a sale barn in Buffalo, Missouri. Which when I first saw Buffalo, I thought Wyoming, but it's actually Buffalo, Missouri. Um, where they said that Mr. Goggins, which is Joe Goggins, and he's kind of been the spearhead behind this Common Ground Coalition deal.
Hmm.
I believe, he's been doing a bunch of interviews promoting the Common Ground Coalition. And he
Right.
said they were meeting with President Trump in Washington, D.C. to show him solutions. She said this on October 20th. Trump's tweet came out to October 22nd. And so if you're not familiar with Common Ground, I can't remember what month it was, but it was this year. 40 of the biggest industry, what would you call them? Leaders?
Elites,
I don't know. Influencers, whatever.
influencers, elites,
Yeah.
leaders.
But it was invite only.
Right.
So this Livestock Marketing Association has kind of put this coalition of invite only people.
Right.
And it's when you see something like that. And so they created this policy. It was 40 of these industry people created a policy,
Yeah.
and we didn't hear
A
anything
list of
about
policies.
what's that?
A list
Yeah,
of
a list of
policies.
policies. And when that comes out, you have to assume it's going to rub people the wrong way because no one knew about it. All of a
I-
sudden, the cattle industry is told that these are the policies
Mhm.
we're going to put forward, and
Right.
these are your leaders. There was no
Right.
policy votes and no
Right.
nothing. And so,
And I think that's what rubs people the wrong way is the initial gathering and how it was done more than the policies because the
oh yeah,
policies, we've talked about this on here. There's some good policies in there, right?
right.
Things that we've talked about ourselves that, access to capital, getting kids back on the land, refining,
It's all very
insurance
similar
measures.
to what the USDA came out with,
Very similar. Yeah.
which is makes this even more of a head scratcher. I mean, if you want to get into, I'm not scratching my head, but because one of the other thing that has rubbed people the wrong way this year, around the same time as Common Ground Coalition, is the American Angus Association
Correct.
took in $4 million from the Bezos Earth Fund to create this line of genetics that creates less methane. And it all goes into this removing methane from cattle, from the
Right.
environment, and cattle industry people, actual ranchers, who have been blamed for climate change for however
Right.
many years,
Right.
are finally getting to the point where, climate change is really being questioned, and especially the whole cattle uh, impact. It's all really being shown as BS. And so now here, Angus Association is taking this money in, and a lot of the people associated with the Angus
Correct.
Association taking that money in. Joe Goggins is a big time Angus rancher who's very influential in the Angus
Yeah.
Association,
Yeah.
and he's
It
putting this
all
deal
is
together,
interwoven.
right? Turk
Yes.
Stovall, who was the spokesperson at the Common Ground, he kind of was the moderator or MC, whatever, at the Common Ground meetings.
Okay.
He's making the most eco-friendly cattle feedlot in the world with solar panels and methane digesters and all kinds of things that the government will probably, under a Biden administration, would probably dump millions of dollars into and
Sure.
maybe did. Um, but now Trump is in there and he's pushing back on all of this stuff. And if you followed us, we talked a lot about a Key Jim interview where he says ESG, which is environmental social governance, is here to stay. And if you don't believe that, you're living in a world of denial. That was before Donald Trump. I believe it was before. It might have been right after Donald Trump's election, but um, if you go by those words, you would say that the president of the United States is living in a world of denial because he has really come out against all of this ESG, which includes diversity, equity, inclusion, all of this race-based stuff, and also all of the climate stuff.
Right.
And in the big beautiful bill, We pointed out that the methane thing was kind of skipped over, but he went after the windmills and the solar panels and a lot of those kind of subsidies. Um, and so that's where we are with it. I'm just going into kind of what has caused a pushback of against the Common Ground Coalition. And I think it's important to notice also Jack Payne, who had the sale barn that this announcement was originally going to be rolled out at, has
Hmm.
probably been the loudest detractor
Oh
from
yeah.
the Common Ground Coalition. And a lot of his issues have to do with, we've talked a lot about beef on dairy, and some of the guys included in this Common Ground Coalition are simply beef on dairy people. That's what they do. And so there's been this big push by National Cattlemen's Beef Association and a number, there's just kind of promoting this beef on dairy all of a sudden, which is, as it turns out, these feed yards and the dairy industry mainly has been in this methane collection and digestion and creating natural gas from methane for years now. And now in the cattle industry, the main feeders are beef on dairy cattle feeders who are into getting into this methane digestion and
Right.
trying to make money off of this subsidized natural
And
gas that
and we have to remember what Key Jim said about
exactly.
this time. It's vertical integration, and I say it's the march to uniformity, which is vertical integration. And I have also kept saying you were going to see more people go out of the business on these highs than we ever have in the history of the world. And today we've seen, how much, how many billions of dollars just in today's in value did we lose today alone, not considering the last 4 days of trade, right? A lot. And
Right.
so this is all adding up and kind of coming together like you've been talking about, Jim.
Yeah. So that's I just want to give an outline of what the Common Ground Coalition is and what they are. But they're in D.C. and they're meeting
Right.
with elected leaders. And according to the Buffalo Livestock Facebook, they were meeting with Trump. Corbett Wall this morning said the reason that Corbett, who is probably as an insider of the sale barn and livestock
Oh, sure.
marketing, he's a marketing reporter, so he knows all these sale barn guys. Common Ground Coalition is a sale barn, as a livestock marketing association membership thing. But what he
Hmm.
said was that cattle industry leaders refused to meet or to refuse to show up for that announcement, which, um,
They refused to show up at Trump's announcement.
yes. So you didn't watch Feeder Flash? I
Go
will
ahead.
quote
Keep
it because I
going.
wrote it down. What's that?
Quote it.
Give me 1 second here. And I'm working on an article that kind of lays all this out that will be on lonesomelands.com. And I haven't written anything for I don't know how long, but it takes me a long time to write stuff. So be patient. This morning it was reported on Feeder Flash. Trump had some meetings with some cattle industry leaders there, and they tried to play hardball with him. And they said he needed to walk back the statement he said about Argentina and importing more beef from them. And that if he didn't take that back, they were not going to show up to an announcement by the Secretary of Agriculture to help vitalize the cattle industry that he had invited him to on, Corbett said Friday, but it was actually Wednesday. He didn't walk it back, and they didn't show up, and it pissed him off. That's what was said this morning on Feeder Flash. Um, and so I don't know if it was, I mean, Common Ground Coalition was there. They said they were meeting with Donald Trump. There was two people who showed up to the announcement, Jack Payne and Hayden Ballard, that
Wow.
were in the Oval Office. I'm guessing this was going to be an event for the cattle industry. They had spent, if you go back, Jack Payne has flown to DC, I don't know how many times. AJ Richards has been kind of a someone who has worked with Brooke Rollins a lot,
Right.
the secretary, and has I don't know how many times he's been in DC, kind of putting this plan together. A number of other independent ranchers, not associated with associations,
Right.
because I think that was important to them, not to have like not to bring in the NCBA or U.S. Cattlemen's or RCAF or any of that, just bring in guys. And it
People,
was mainly
producers.
Westerners because a lot of it has to do with federal lands and grazing.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of a big part of the plan. So it was guys from Utah, Wyoming, Montana, and Nevada. And so they've been working on this deal for months, and this was going to be their rollout instead of having it at the sale barn because the government shutdown, they were going to have it at the Oval Office. And it was going to be, I think, a kind of a big deal. And certain cattle industry groups and leaders, like NCBA is always in the in DC. And I don't know who was invited. That's all I can say. But it definitely points to common ground people being invited and not showing up because they were mad about this Argentina beef thing, which is ridiculous. And I'll get into a couple of the reactions here, which really tell a lot. But what happened was Donald Trump met with Hayden Ballard and Jack Payne. um, and I think one thing that says a lot is the first tweet coming out of National Cattlemen's Beef Association, where it says, cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump while he undercuts the future of family farmers and ranchers by importing Argentinian beef. And when I saw that, everybody else kind of probably saw that and goes over it. But I knew there was a press conference that day, and I knew there was going to be cattlemen in their cowboy hats standing behind President Trump. And the only two that showed up were Jack Payne and Hayden Ballard. And then NCBA all of a sudden comes out almost like they're waiting for a picture of two independent ranchers not affiliated with the NCBA. And they say cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump. If you go back to Common Ground's first, their social media post talking about their time in Washington, D.C., their first line is not just a photo op, real work for real reform. Meaning Jack Payne and Hayden Ballard went there for a photo op, but Common Ground went there to do work, right? This is a pissing match, is what this is, between independent cattle people and the establishment. Establishment lobbyist beef industry who didn't say shit during Holcomb beef fire, didn't do anything during COVID, didn't do anything 2015 you got into. And now all of a sudden the president says something about Argentinian beef and they're all going nuts and refusing to meet with the most powerful man on the planet. Insane. The next morning after this deal, and so I'd called Jack the day before the thing happened. I had talked to Jack on the phone. He was like, I don't know if I can get out there because I have a cow sale. He's selling cattle that day on the day of the announcement. And he is hands-on in the alleys. He's not an auctioneer like most sale barn guys. He is in the back sorting cows and making sure everything runs. And so his wife got him a plane ticket. He flew out there, got there at 1 in the morning, went to Trump's thing all day, was in the White House the next day, did different meetings with different people. And then the next morning I call him and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I just saddled a horse. I'm walking down the alley. He was at a sale barn. He goes, I got in the middle of the night. I just stayed in Reno instead of driving. And then he went straight to the sale barn, saddled his horse, went to work. That's who I want representing the cattle industry. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Hayden Ballard, I don't know him near as well, but I hear the same thing. He runs cattle on public lands. That's why he was part of this. He became an attorney because he wanted to influence this public land deal, learn about how to protect the cattle, America's cattle rancher in this public lands situation, all of that stuff. Those are the guys I want represent, not lobbyists, not suits in DC, and not people who want to throw their weight around. Those guys want to work and get things done and help the rancher. And Jack's talked about that ad nauseum. We talk about transparency. He's on there once a week. Follow him on Facebook. Follow Lonesome Lands. I share all of his stuff and read what he thinks. You don't have to guess what he's doing like you do all these other industry groups.
And I'm not saying Jack is right about everything. I mean,
no.
I identify with Jack very much. I mean, maybe he gets a little too wild and people don't like that.
He is a bulldog.
He's a bulldog. He's a pit bull. And here you have him who's running his own business, created his own business there in Fallon. You have Hayden Ballard, who is an independent rancher and a lawyer. He is the go-to guy for public lands, federal lands issues right now. He has worked under the two best teachers on those issues in the United States. He's the future of public lands and the laws surrounding those. And then you have this AJ, which I don't know AJ well, but he has created this relationship with USDA for the independent producer, right? And that's a channel that we can use, and that's a bridge that has been gapped. You know
Right.
why? Because he's trustworthy, he's trustable, he doesn't have this nefarious agenda behind him. So I think that's very important. All these things are important. I'm not saying Common Ground and all these organizations don't have great points. Sure, they have great points, but when was the last time, which, by the way, uh, Jim, the majority of producers in the United States do not affiliate with an organization. The high majority of producers, right? That's important to understand. So you have independent people who refuse to become a pawn in an organization that these people can get on board with, right?
Right.
They,
And
they identify.
if you look at each of them's livelihood, it depends on independent cattlemen. Right. Being an
Absolutely.
attorney for public lands issues,
Mm-hmm.
AJ's from the farm, focusing on bringing beef and cattle
Farm
directly
to
from the
table.
farm to the consumer.
Yep,
Jack
that's
is
right.
representing independent ranchers in his sale barn. If there aren't, he said it a million times, if the more independent ranchers I lose, that's less bidders, and less consigners. And he
Mm-hmm.
wants to grow that. And his whole thing is growing rural communities and all that stuff. And those are the
Sure.
people we want in there. And they're not just saying it and then going into their office in DC.
Right.
They live it every day.
Right.
Jack, I'll never forget that when I'm like, "What are you doing?" Because I was like, he's probably so wore out and stressed out from all this whole thing, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Walking down the alley, just sat on my
Yep.
horse. That's
Yep.
Jack Payne,
I mean, you're in the White House one day and walking down the alley the next. I get it.
right?
You make a good point, one that I hadn't thought of about the carbon capture subsidies, right? I mean, could this be a moment where they said Trump's pushing back on the climate change agenda, which we know is a lie. He knows it's a freedom taker. That's why he's pushing back on it. So they say, hold my beer. Could it be? I don't know. One thing that we do have to, I think it's important, Jim, to for you to talk about, or me, is that there have been billions of dollars. People, and I'm in that group. I thought when we got to 340, there was no way we were going higher on feeder cattle, that we had hit the top. It was top heavy then, and it's continued to be top heavy. But the board went against a lot of feeder cattle people, including
Meaning,
me.
yeah. So meaning you
Yeah.
shorted the market. When we
So
start getting into this market stuff, we got to.
that's right. And so
You bet on the
it's
market going down because you
down.
saw it at
I
at its top.
correct. I
And
thought
that
it
is what
was.
a lot of really big money cattle people did. If you
Absolutely. I know a guy that cut his losses short at $20 million. I as an individual producer, I put so much money into margin calls that it's worked against me, right? It's scary. And so all of this money lost because they were thinking we were top heavy, it's going to go down. They bet against the market, it goes higher, and margin calls start coming in. Margin calls. And we're talking, like, for me, I hedged all of my feeder cattle last year or before January at 273, and I was like, this is the best hedge of my life, and it was. I never dreamed this feeder cattle deal would go to 370, $100 against me. And this is the position many people are in. Now, I don't have that many contracts. I have a lot for an individual guy, but I don't have many contracts. So you have all of these margin calls going against these people are losing money. And even though their cattle are probably covered, it's counted as a loss, right? It's so much. We've talked about this before, Jim. Access to capital, access to capital. We don't have that much money, right? And so these people are losing money. Now, all of a sudden, if they happen to get in and go short, last Wednesday, they're sitting really good and
yeah,
getting a lot of that money back. I just calculated the October 25 uh since Wednesday, the market has gone down. Uh, it's gone down. I just calculated the loss in the market value for October 25 feeder cattle futures only have been $75 million just on October.
right. So as we talk about how independent I mean, if you're taking your calves to the sale today versus last week, you gave that number. But we also have to focus on if people shorted the market, they are cashing in today.
They're getting their money back. They're getting their money
Right.
back. Those guys who have the affluence to stay with the cash, have access to the cash and stay in that market, and then something just happens to happen that we piss off President Trump, the market goes down. I'm not saying this was conspiratorial. I'm saying here we are. President Trump comes out and says we could could import a little bit of Argentinian beef to bring the beef prices down. The market reflects that. Okay, you have an initial reaction. We knew the market was top heavy. It has an initial reaction to that. We know there's going to be carryover the next day because the limit down, there's always carryover. There's never going back up. And then we have these whatever's going on in Washington, D.C. We have the Mexican border confusion that Sid Miller pulls out off the limit. You get in, expect it to go down. There's lots of money to be made. And that would help these guys that have lost so much. Let's just calculate it for real quick. 925 times 2. So it's gone down since Wednesday, $35. $35 a hundred on one feeder cattle contract. That's $17,750 move since Wednesday on one feeder cattle contract. That's massive amounts of money. And that's what we're playing with here. This is like the wildest west show I've ever seen in my life. And I thought nothing could top 2015, but this is topping it so far. Now, there's still positivity, and here's why. We haven't created more cattle or more beef since last Wednesday,
Yeah,
right?
fundamentals are the same.
The fundamentals are the same. And so I think that lends to us and the supply and demand, which we've enjoyed that supply and demand driven market for a long time. And so maybe, just maybe, we'll correct ourselves out of this, and time will tell, right? That's where we're at. But certainly, if a man was lucky enough to short them feeder futures, he is in the driver's seat today.
Right. And so I guess if you want to get real tinfoily hat, you could be like, well, I mean, one thing you could say, well, who convinced Trump to come out with those comments? Nobody. I mean,
Nobody. I
you
think
could
that's just
say he's
Trump.
been influenced by certain news reports, like he talks, he watches Fox and Friends or whatever. There have been more and more news reports about beef being super high.
Uh huh.
Um, when there shouldn't be. Like there's been no news reports about potato chips doubling in price or cereal or any of that other crap.
Somebody just posted a Snickers deal, price per pound of Snickers, a Snickers candy bar on X today, and it was like $15 a pound,
Right.
right?
But then you go back into that soybean deal where when, the president gets blamed for commodity prices. You go into oil and he's the one, he's like, I've got right now we have, I mean, commodities are different, right?
God
And that's
bless
the
Donald
one
Trump.
thing that people need to realize. I mean, that's why he's focusing on cattle or beef because it's a commodity, and politicians get blamed for commodity prices. Um, and I don't know. I guess we went.
Well, I mean, my wife told me this morning, she says, Shad, you're in an industry that is so volatile, so volatile. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. Uh, but I think the only thing I have to say about President Trump's comments is that he doesn't belong in commenting on that.
Right.
I think that's the consumer. We have to go back to this plan, Jim. I love this plan. I like it. It's a little subsidy heavy, it's a little bit surveillance heavy, but I read through it again today and I love the plan. It's a good plan. It's very well thought out. I don't know who came up with it. Don't know who gets the credit for it. Don't give a crap. But when they say let's open up the lands, let's get people back onto the land, let's help the youth re-enter the country or the industry. Let's get these school lunch programs fixed. I like this. I like this. It's positivity.
Right.
We have the ability to do it. So let's just trust the process one more freaking time.
to me, the overall plan, and like I said, I did a video right after all this stuff where I was kind of tying things together. And what I said there is like the title of this podcast should be all about this plan. If you think about that Trump tweet, even with his comments a few days before, if that tweet didn't go out and he didn't get pissed off at certain people in the cattle business, um, the whole week we would talk about this plan. Everybody would be breaking it down, talk about what they like,
Absolutely.
talk about what they don't like.
Yep.
I mean, this is the USDA finally going in, and people are mad now that as the market drops, we don't. Brooke Rollins isn't out saying we aren't opening the border, which she has said repeatedly. She is
Just
not
last
opening the
week.
border until the screwworm is pushed back to the dairying gap or pushed back a significant progress on pushback.
Absolutely.
And up
She has
until this
made that
point,
clear.
all we've seen is it pushing towards the border. She hasn't seen it get pushed back. And so she has made that clear. And so everybody that wants to freak out and speculate, blame Sid Miller. Don't blame Brooke Rollins because he's the one begging. He's on a media campaign. That's the other thing. People are so pissed off about Argentina and Trump and his comments. Sid Miller's talking about beef being too high. And the way we get it down is we import cattle. He's saying that in these interviews. He's done
He
a
literally
number
said
of,
it.
he's on a media campaign, the Texas Ag Commissioner. And if you want to look at hierarchy of cattle industry leadership, a lot of it points to, Texas cattle feeders, and they are the ones who want that border open. And now they have Sid Miller, who has his 5-point plan to get beef prices lower. And nobody's talking about that. Everybody's mad at Trump and Rollins and every other thing. And it's like, and I don't, if Trump just said, screw you guys completely, I mean, if you think about that, the cattle industry getting invited to the Oval Office, when have you ever seen that happen? Who
Never.
turns down that invitation?
Nobody.
I mean, Putin, all the,
I get, I
everyone in the
know.
world wants to come and be in the most influential office in the world, right?
Absolutely.
And
The
if you
most
truly,
elite people in the world.
right, and if you truly want to talk to, have any input on this beef price or this industry or whatever, you show up and you shake hands and you say, let's work on this. Now,
Yeah,
we
even
aren't
if you
coming.
even if you don't like it, you just go and you say, "Hey, we've got to fix this.
Right,
We
which
got
is
to get."
Jack Payne came out with an article. You go to lonesomelands.com. I was
Mhm.
able to put it in article form. He put it on Facebook, and I just took it and I thought this needs to be shared. I'm going to start doing that more because it's easy to stick on Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. But he wrote an article, cheap imports do not equal cheap beef prices.
And we saw that in the
And then he
last.
went into Donald Trump's office and shook his hand and said, thank you for spending time on trying to fix things in the cattle industry, which is what his administration has done with Brooke Rollins and this
Mhm,
plan.
mhm.
And this plan mirrors practically what the Common Ground whole
It
thing, their whole
does.
marketing spiel
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And so to me, and what I've thought from the get-go, when you look at methane and you look at the people involved in the methane and this methane scam of
Uh-huh.
of methane digesters, Common Ground wants and all they want you to do is sign up. They don't want you to pay any attention to anything. They just want
Right.
you to sign your name into it.
Right.
It's like that
8,000
lady. She'll buy you a
signatures.
cheeseburger if you sign your
Yep,
name on the
8,000
deal.
signatures.
Right. And to me, it's like, well, what do you really want? These guys, if this methane deal gets cut, they're out a lot, right? If it keeps going, they
Likely.
stand to gain a lot.
Likely
And
so.
the whole place that this is going to happen is Washington, D.C. And so they're saying, well, we want to fight for the family rancher. Send us to D.C. Well, what else
So,
are you going to fight for
well, let me ask
if
you a
you're putting
question.
together the most eco-friendly feedlot in the world that stands to possibly get all your subsidies cut?
We need to title this "Capitalizing on Communism." That's what that
They-
reminds me of.
I'm in
Well,
charge of
let
title.
me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. So, what I'm getting from this conversation, are you saying that they told President Trump to retract his comments about the Argentinian beef, or else? Is that what I'm getting
I
at?
don't know what they said. What has been reported is that so I'm just telling you what's been reported. Common Ground Coalition had scheduled a meeting with Donald Trump.
Which they had a meeting with Secretary Rollins and a bunch of legislators.
Right.
I think I seen that on.
Yeah, they did. They have
Okay.
a picture with them all.
Right. That's what I saw.
Yeah, with like he. I think Harriet had met with them. A number of
Okay.
other people met with him. But what was reported on Feeder Flash was they refused to come to the announcement of the plan.
Okay.
I'm
All
not
right.
saying it was common ground. I'm saying cattle industry leaders refused to come to the announcement of this beef industry plan. That's all I'm saying. I don't know who was invited, and I don't know who refused to show up. I know Common Ground was in DC. I know they were supposed to be meeting with Donald Trump. I know that their first line of their social media was not about a photo op, you know?
I'm just
And
thinking
I know
about that.
NCBA's first line of their social media after Donald Trump's tweet was cattlemen and women cannot stand behind President Trump.
I
Were they invited and did they refuse to stand behind President Trump? I mean, this is all, and people talk, Common Ground talks about transparency. We're going to be all transparent. NCBA has sent out 3 tweets, I think, since Trump made his social media post, and 2 of them were about Trump's post. And I mean, they tweet like twice a week, and then they did 2 in one day. You know what I mean? I mean, they don't. It was almost like they were ready for this to happen. Almost like I'm not even gonna say it, but I'm not
well, you
saying.
got you get a little deeper in thought than I do. I'm just sitting here thinking about President Trump's tweet, and I'm like, somebody really did. I mean, if you're talking to me and all my friends, we're we're like, hey, stay out of the fray on this. Keep your mouth shut. We don't need any help. Let the consumer dictate the market. But let's be buds. Let's be friends because we don't want communism. We don't want land grabs. We don't want carbon
Well, even
methane.
if it's Joe Biden, if you were invited to go to the worst president ever, if it was Kamala Harris and you got
Well,
invited to
but
go,
let's
I would.
just say we know we would never be invited. So that's not
Oh
even a
no,
consideration,
yeah, but
right?
I'm just saying,
But
if
these are the people that supported Trump. These are all supposed
I don't know that they
conservative.
supported him.
Well, I know some of them guys on Common Ground that are Democrats, and they didn't support him. But overall, I bet the high percentage are conservative Christian producers across the nation. And so I'm saying I guess I don't understand the bridge or the line in the sand that said we can't work with you unless it's our way. That's the feeling I'm getting from this conversation. And so then Trump spouts off that tweet, and I'm like, we're making the wrong
I'll
people
read you
mad.
something else.
All right.
Maybe kind of. I keep losing it. So Jake Parnell was a member of LMA and this Common Ground. He's kind of him and Joe Goggins have been on the kind of the media tour promoting the
Okay. I don't
Common
know
Ground
Jake
deal.
Parnell.
What's that?
I don't know who he is.
He owns a sale barn in California and I believe is like a Western video
Okay.
guy. I think he maybe runs that or I don't know. I should have this in front of me, CEO or something like that.
All right.
But he talks about these meetings they had in California. I mean, in Washington, D.C., because he was one of the people there meeting with the leaders. And he said there was a strong desire from the participants to further educate those that we elect about the hardworking American rancher and the fundamentals of the beef business. Um, right? So it's kind of like they were there to educate lawmakers. If you take that into like, were you trying to educate Donald Trump? I mean, it's kind of like because that doesn't really work out usually
Yeah.
if you take that approach. Um, and so I mean, all we're doing is, and everybody in the cattle industry is always like, well, pick up the phone and call these people. Somebody commented on I put the livestock marketing. I talked about how they put up this post and talked about Trump's meeting with Common Ground people. And and I had 4 questions on there. Let me see if I can find it real quick because I posed 4 questions, and one of the commenters from the LMA sale barn was his said was, well, what do you want to know? Just ask me what you want to know. Let's talk about it. I just asked 4 questions. Answer the questions. You know what I mean? I said, since Common Ground Coalition likes to tout transparency, maybe they could fill us in. Who were the other industry leaders that met with President Trump? What was discussed? And what specifically caused the president to send a seemingly irate social media message to all American ranchers? Lastly, this was me kind of poking at him. Is there a way for people who've signed up to have their names removed? And so I believe the guy who commented was the owner of the sale barn, but he said, well, just ask me some questions of common ground. If let me fill you in, and I'm sure you'll be happy to sign up. And I'm like, I just asked you four questions, just answer them. And of course, they didn't answer. And that's the whole thing about these. NCBA is the same way. Oh, we're completely transparent and we're this grassroots organization and all this. Well, be transparent. It's not hard. We come on here once a week and, spill our drip. Shad just gave all the people his financial statement practically from the past year on your margin calls and how you hedged your cattle. It's not that hard to share with people your thoughts or what you're up to. And you don't have to have a podcast or anything else. We all have Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff. And if you're an organization, Common Ground put out their whole thing of all the industry leaders they met with and who all was there meeting with them. They really didn't get into what they talked about.
Was there, when they invited those 40 people to Common Ground, what, I mean, I don't, I've not, I have no idea who all was there. I know a few people that was there. Are they mostly all NCBA members? Is this a bridge to the NCBA type deal, or do you know?
A lot of them there was a past president, Don Scheffelbein, and he was a past president of NCBA, and he was also part of the group in DC this past week. So NCBA definitely
Okay.
has their ties to it.
Okay.
Jacqueline Wilson said the people that pissed Trump off were USCA members. So I don't know. I mean, there was people from
Maybe there
every
is
organization
USDA.
except for
Yeah.
RCAF. I'll say that. Right?
Surprise, surprise,
Yeah,
right?
RCAF was not invited. But then you go into common ground too. It's like they all want unity. They all want,
Well, they all
kind of
want, it sounds like they want unity their way, right?
yeah, it's like a kumbaya, everybody hold hands. Oh, we're not going to go meet with the president. I don't know.
I'm blown away that they did not show up for that.
Oh,
And
and so to be clear, all that was said was cattle industry leaders refused to meet with, or refused to attend the announcement.
I
But,
get it. We'll
the
never
proof
know.
is in the pudding of what that caused, I think, which is
I think
Donald Trump's tweet. And now we are on the third day of
now
four.
we're at $36 below the market value of last Wednesday.
All right, man. Well, we've almost hit an hour and I have to get going. And we're going to have a lot, though, this week. I'm going to work hard on this deal. I'm finally
There's
back
another
home.
special edition coming up on Thursday.
Every week's a special edition. We don't
No,
know.
I mean
Let's not announce
Thursday.
anything yet, but we stay tuned
Yeah, stay tuned. It's going
because
to be good.
things, as we can see, have seen, things change. We were hoping to be in, I was hoping to be in Fallon, Nevada last week
So
with
is
the
that whole
Secretary of
deal
Ag.
canceled? Or are
Huh?
we all
No, I believe they're still hoping to have an event at Nevada Livestock Market.
okay. I'd really like
Um,
to go out there and buy some cattle.
well, there you go. But I don't know if there was going to be a sale. I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, the hope was, that just goes back to it. The USDA put some work into this deal and it's all been overshadowed. And
Well,
that's the
listen,
most
I
disappointing
just
thing.
want them to know I want this on record. In my life, I don't ever remember having a relationship with the Secretary of Agriculture from the independent side. I told you back when President Trump was trying to select the Secretary of Agriculture, I said, I'm going to sit down and I want to shake her hand. And I got to do that. And so that was pretty cool that an independent rancher like me got to shake Secretary Rollins' hand and say, hey, these are the issues close to me. And I told her about all of these land issues, which, by the way, we're going to have to hit on these land issues because the environmentalists, the hunting clubs, and the U.S., a lot of the holdovers in the federal government are doubling down on land grabs in the West. Right now, I'm working on 5 different issues in the West, and that doesn't even begin to get close to what we have. And I told Secretary Rollins, I said, it's important for me to let you know that every issue that we are working on, whether it's in the beef industry, the marketing part of the beef industry, whatever that may be, it is all about land, the access to the land, and who's going to have access to those natural resources. Because all of these ENGOs, NGOs, nefarious people, through partnerships, are infiltrating into the industry. We see this, Jim. This is today's market shows a lot of the globalist move that is happening in terms of land grabs. This is all interwoven, and it's very important for the people to understand how it's interwoven. And I hope we do that and can continue to do that on a weekly basis to teach these people why we have the lowest amount of ranchers and cattle on the land in history right here, especially
Yes.
since 1951. This is the reason.
And if you appreciate what we're doing here and you want to support us, go to lonesomelands.com.
Yeah.
Click on support. I was thinking about this driving the truck and tractor. I was like, it's kind of, all of our content is free. There's ways that you can pay for the content. And I was like, oh, it's kind of like your old sweet corn stand with the jar out front. And you can just, that's the jar, our support page. If you're consuming the content and you find it valuable and entertaining,
Yeah. If
we
you
would
find it
appreciate if you
valuable,
support there because
really,
that makes us, also Circle Five Cattlemen, Cattle School, people like that have supported us a ton, and it would be great for you to help them out too. So, I wish we had more time. I wish we could spend this whole episode talking about this USDA plan, but I mean, the news is what the news is, and we
well,
can't. I
you can
mean, the
go to
main
USD.
thing that happened over the week, there was really one thing in agriculture, and you're not going to get the other thing about support us. You're not going to get this conversation anywhere else, and if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be hearing this conversation. So we'd appreciate it. I mean, it ain't. We're
Well,
not
it just
making any friends here doing this today.
and we're
I'll
not
tell you
making
that
much
much.
money, any money. This is all volunteer time, especially for me. But I just want to make sure everybody knows that you can go to USDA.gov, to that web page, and see that
I'll put a
that
link in the description.
yeah, put that link to that plan. It's a good plan. It's a better, listen, not everything's perfect, but we have a plan. And a lot of people have said it's a big nothing burger. I don't agree with that. I think that it touched on things that we have to do. Is it perfect? No, I'd like to see some stuff come out of that. But overall, it's a plan, and we can start there. It's a starting place. And we finally have, let me just say this and then we'll go. We finally have a real partnership between the Department of the Interior and the United States Department of Agriculture. That's the kind of partnerships we should have, not with ENGOs and NGOs, public private partnerships. This partnership will create a memorandum that will help open up more federal lands to more producers. What a great idea. Let's do it. That's all I got to say.
See you next week.
Adios.